Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. I am Nushawati Rahman. Today I'm going to discuss on question 1, A, B and C. For question 1A, it requires us to calculate the goodwill or bargain purchase on purchase of XCC, Tayyub and Gulsan. Step for calculating the goodwill or bargain purchase is by adding the consideration transfer with the NCI less fair value of the net asset less any impairment. So for XCC computation, consideration transfer of 320 million we can get from the question. Before calculating the NCI, we need to calculate the fair value of the net asset, which include in the ordinary share capital plus any reserve and any changes in fair value on the date of acquisition. Ordinary share capital of XCC is 350 million. There is an ARR of 36 million and 58 million of the retained profit, which you can get from the question. As we add up, the fair value of the net asset is 444 million. So now we can calculate the calculation of the NCI. The group measure the NCI at its proportionate share. So for XCC, the NCI is only 30%. 30% times with the 444 million, we will get 133.2 million. Then the total of 453.2 million we will get from adding this consideration transfer and NCI. Since at the end of the year, the investment in XCC impair, we need to deduct the amount of 9.2 million with the impairment in order to know whether there is a goodwill or bargain. As for XCC, we will get 7.36 million of goodwill. This amount we will put in SOFP, and the impairment amount we also record in the schedule. We move on Tayyub. The step also the same. For the consideration transfer of 110, we can get from the question. Ordinary share capital of Tayyub is 100 million. There is an ARR of 25. We add up 1 million in the ARR of 24 million because there is an excess of fair value on the date of acquisition. And also, there is 39 million of retained profit. As we add up, the fair value of the net asset is 164 million. The NCI is only 20%. 20% times with 164 million, we will get 142.8 million. So the total sum is 142.8 million. After deducting with the fair value of the net asset, we will get a bargain purchase of 21.2 million. This amount we will put in the schedule under group. Since the holding also acquired debenture, so we need to calculate the debenture portion in order to know the existence of goodwill or bargain purchase. For consideration transfer, the amount is 12.50 million. Since the question states that the fair value is equal to the carrying amount, so that the fair value of the net asset is 50 million. NCI portion, which is 75%, with time with 50 million, to get NCI amount of 37.50 million. After deducting the fair value of the net asset with the 50 million, it shows that there is no goodwill or bargain purchase. Lastly, we calculate the bargain or the goodwill of Gulsan. The steps still remain the same except the consideration transfer. For the consideration transfer, we will time the consideration transfer amount with the 70%. Why 70%? Because it used the interest of holding in XCC. So the consideration transfer amount is 42 million. From the table, ordinary share capital of Gulsan is 30 million, which you can get in the question. There is an ARR of 8.5 million. 8 million is the reserve on the date of acquisition plus with 0.5, which is the excess of fair value that have not been included. In addition, for this case, Since it being acquired on the current year, we need to include the current year profit of 9.10 million. As we add up, the fair value of the net asset is 67.5 million. The NCI is only 44%. Why 44? Because the NCI for indirect interest is 44. So 44% times with the 67.5 million, we will get 29.7 million. So the total sum is 71.7 million. After deducting with the fair value of the net asset, we will get a goodwill of 4.2 million. This amount we will put in SOFP. Next, I will discuss on the question 1B. The question required us to calculate the gain or loss from second acquisition in Tayu. The step is the same, just that there is no portion of NCI calculated. So, for the consideration transfer, since the holding acquired another 10%, so the first we calculate the share of holding acquired, which is 10% times with number of OSC, which is 50 million. Then the answer we will times with 2/5 and 5.6. This is because the holding purchased the share by issuing 2 of each share to acquire 5 units of share at price of 5.6 ringgit per share. So we get the amount of 11.2. For the calculation of fair value of NCI, the OSC is 100 million. You can get in the question. As for the retained profit, we use the retained profit brought down of 39.8 million, while ARR is 25 million. Then the total sum of fair value of NCI, we time with 10% NCI portion, we will get 16.48 million. The group will have a gain in reduction of NCI amount to 5.28 million. This amount will be credited in the retained profit of holding. Next, I will discuss on the schedule of group retained profit and the non-controlling interest as at 30 June 2019. We will need 3 columns for group NCI ARR. First, record all the NCI portion from every subsidiary including the indirect interest. To calculate the indirect interest of NCI, get the consideration transfer of Gulsan, which is 60 million, then we times it with the NCI interest of XCC. This is because Gulsan is a subsidiary of XCC. In addition, we also need to include the decrease in NCI that we have calculated in question 1B. Next, we calculate the retained profit for all subsidiaries including the parent. Shall we start? Calculated for parent retained profit. Balance carried down 184 million, we plus with the profit of 24.3 million. Then we less the unrealized profit of inventory and machine. The unrealized profit happen when there is the intercompany. Group cannot record the profit that gain from the intercompany sales. Besides, we add the 1 million over depreciation. The over depreciation occurs when the calculation of the depreciation using the amount of purchase price. As I told before in question 1A, impairment loss just debit in retained profit of holding. Other than that, we also include the bargain purchase of 21.2 million. Every bargain purchase must be included. Since the holding has associated with NARS, we must include the share of profit from NARS, amount to 0.79. In order to calculate the amount of share of profit, we need to use the cost plus the share of profit. In this case, we record the balance CD since we acquired it on 1 January. Then less the unrealized profit of inventory, only 20% unsold. So 20% times with profit 2.5 million times 25 over 125, where we can get 0.10. We sum up the balance CD and the unrealized profit, then times with the interest portion of 30%. Since there is an impairment loss happen, so we need to less the impairment, so the total of the share of profit. At the end, we will get 15.79. As investment in associate, where the interest in associate is only 0.79 million. Back to the retained profit of parent. Don't forget to include the gain of reduction of NCI amount to 5.28 million. All of the retained profit of parent will record in the group retained profit only. As for retained profit in XCC, the 87.20 million is amount of retained profit CD plus the net profit. Then we less the pre-acquisition amount to 58 million. The total of 29.20 million must be divided to group and NCI according to the portion, which is 70% for parent, 30% for NCI. Next, the calculation Tayub relation profit. As usual, the balance CD amount is 50 million plus 15.2 million. Then we less the pre-acquisition of 39 million. Other than that, we also less the unrealized profit of motor vehicles of 1.5 million and the under depreciation amount of 0.04. The under depreciation amount happen when depreciation computation use the amount that is not yet revalued even though the asset has revalued. Not forget to credit the amount of over depreciation of 0.30. The total of 24.96 million also need to be divided according to the interest portion, which is 90% group and 10% NCI. Next, we calculate for Gulsan retained profit. Record the balance CD plus the profit, which you can get from the question. The sum will amount to 36.1 million. Then we less the pre-acquisition amount to 19.9 million and also the current year retained profit amount to 7.10 million. The total of retained profit will also be divided into 56% for group and 44% for NCI. After settle the calculation of retained profit, we calculate the ARR. All the parent ARR we record in the group. As for XCC, the balance CD of ARR less the pre-acquisition ARR amount of 36, which result to no distribution to parent and NCI. As for Tayub Berhad, the balance CD less the pre-acquisition, then plus the ARR of 1 million, which the excess of the fair value, then 1 million will be divided to group and NCI using the portion of interest. As for Gulsan, the balance CD at million, we less with the pre-acquisition of 8 million, then we plus the ARR of 0.25 that happened at the end of the year ended. The 0.25 million will be distributed to GRP and NCI according to the interest. And lastly, we calculate the total. The group return amount to 273.93 million, NCI 256.69 million, and group ARR amount to 179.04 million. This amount we will record in the SOFP under equity. So next, I will pass to the next presenter, which is Shafika.